To start us off today, I would like us to start with a prayer. And this is a prayer that I find extremely challenging. But whenever I go into any meeting of importance, and for this talk, I would categorize it as such, I find it is a good centering moment. So if you would join me, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, give us humble hearts that love you. Give us grateful hearts that serve you and our donors. Give us trusting hearts that submit ourselves and our organizations to your will. O Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the desire of being esteemed, deliver me. From the desire of being loved, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being extolled, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being honored, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being praised, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being consulted, deliver me, Jesus. From the desire of being approved, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being humiliated, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being despised, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of suffering rebukes, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being calumniated, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being forgotten, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being ridiculed, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being wronged, deliver me, Jesus. From the fear of being suspected, deliver me, Jesus. That others may be loved more than I, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be esteemed more than I, Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be chosen and I set aside. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be praised and I go unnoticed. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be preferred to me in everything. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may become holier than I, provided I may be as holy as I should. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you. So I have to admit, I have written and rewritten this speech at least 5 times. Admittedly, most recently, a good portion of it this morning. And thank you, Peter, for a broad topic. But over the weeks leading up to this, I really have been taking it to prayer, asking the Lord, what do you want them to hear? I think there's so much that we can talk about. There's so many different directions. But truly, I wanted to communicate something from the Lord. I am far from a theologian, and I am still on my path of formation. So in prayer, I wanted to incorporate the conference's theme in some way. So I turned to the scriptures. I thought if we as fundraisers are going to invite donors into relationship and offer them the opportunity to join into our mission, let me see how Jesus did it. How did he invite others? Let me go right to the scriptures, right? The call of Matthew. So I open up my Bible, I'm praying about it. Jesus went on from there. He saw a man named Matthew sitting in the tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him. Matthew got up and followed him. I thought about it. Admittedly, my first reaction was, there's not much there. I mean, it's direct, but what else does it tell us? And so I continued to pray about it. I thought, oh, maybe this isn't the right direction. Maybe I have to think of something else. But I prayed about it, and as I delved deeper into the scriptures, I felt like the Lord revealed a lot more to me. What do we see here? It's individual. He sees Matthew. It's personal, and it's direct. Jesus has a clear case. He doesn't dance around it. But as I continue to pray and go through more scriptures, I feel ultimately this scripture encompasses what we'll be talking about today. What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets it upon his shoulders with great joy. I think we all are that lost sheep. The way that Jesus invites us, the way he reaches out to us, is as the one. We are all the one to Christ. His invitation into relationship is individual and personal. Whether it's the call of the disciples, whether it's the woman at the well, or even the thousands that he fed, each one was met at that personal level. Each encounter with Christ is personal and transformational. He meets us face to face, and he calls us by name. So, as fundraisers, we too have the opportunity to follow Christ's example in our outreach to each donor. Motivated by love, care, and respect for the dignity of each donor, we can endeavor to have a personal approach to this solicitation. Whether it's a potential $1 million gift or a new recurring monthly donor at $20, how can we make each donor feel seen and known and sought after as the one lost sheep? I think that Nick's talk yesterday, though he likes to talk about being practical and maybe leaving the soft theological things to other people in this conference, I think he hit this point so well, right? Within all the types of outreach that we have as fundraisers, whether that's your annual appeal or going to the large masses, how can we leverage the resources that we have at our disposal to still make it feel individual, to make them feel like the one? And I would say, look to Nick's talk for the strategies there. I, however, will be talking about major gifts because that's what I know. It looks vastly different, right, across the different levels and with different strategies. But first, how did I get here? What is the story there? I think Peter gave my resume a little bit, but I wear two hats always. The fundraiser, yes, and the experience there, but also now the donor perspective in my work as a foundation. But this was not an A to B journey for me. I very much fell into this mission, into this line of work. Coming out of college, I was a very idealistic and ambitious young person coming out thinking that I would save the world, go get a doctorate and an MD, and go and start a global nonprofit, maybe take a few pictures for National Geographic and restructure global health. The Lord humbled me a little bit, and I ended up falling into work as a fundraising consultant and was sent down to the swamps of Louisiana. And I wondered, what are you doing with me, Lord? I was a person who did not really value money or really understand it in any way. And suddenly I was a 22-year-old standing in front of crowds, talking to them about stewardship. And in doing and in talking, I taught myself the importance of giving. And so very early on, and I'm so grateful to the Lord for this, I realized I needed to practice what I preach. And I don't think as a college student or as a recent college graduate, I would have as quickly got into understanding my role in the stewardship of the church if it hadn't have been for the fact that I was talking about it. And the Lord just continued. I just trusted in him, not knowing and questioning every step of the way where he was leading. But along the way, we are formed and we grow in the work and the experiences that he gives us. And so I was very blessed to then work with Peter in Oklahoma City and run the campaign to build the shrine for Blessed Stanley Rother. And it led me then to the next path of where I was working for a Catholic high school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where, unbeknownst to me, in a feasibility study interview, I would meet my future. So I was just, again, doing the next right thing that I felt the Lord was inviting me to. And that leads me to Oklahoma City. When I came back, I had just recently moved 100 miles to come back to work with the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City. About 3 months in, I get a personal call. I get an invitation on a random Saturday to consider a new path, which was from my now employer to run her foundation. It did not come at a time that I expected, and I was not ready for the call. But with some good counsel from priest friends, I really went into the scripture and prayed, and this is what came to me. I felt like the Lord was inviting me to step out of the boat. And so I went to Archbishop Coakley and to Peter, who very graciously allowed me to go. And now in the work that I do, serving the mission of the Kathleen S. Craft Foundation, I can see a great culmination in the work of the Lord, that we can take all the experiences, right, from the fundraising, from the donors, how can that all work together in partnership for the advancement of mission? So, major gifts are an opportunity for partnership and mission and deeper relationship. This comes through understanding and knowing your donors, authentic conversations, transparent communication, and sincere stewardship. Ultimately, personal solicitation is a necessary approach to major gift fundraising. We all know the basics, right? People give to people, and there's a great power in personal invitation. But the real goal is partnership. And this is something that I'm blessed to do on a daily basis in the work that I do with the foundation. We come alongside wonderful organizations to partner in their mission, to use the resources given to us to advance. I think this should be the goal of every one of your organizations with the donors that you have, to invite them into that partnership. So, first, understanding and knowing your donors. Now, this, as you advance through donors through the phases of moves management, from discovery into cultivation, all the way to personal solicitation, research is going to be a necessary tool within that. It is never where things end, but you always should be looking at your data. You should be looking at the donor database that you have to discover who is the next person I need to meet, right? It comes to that face-to-face meeting always, but it starts with the research and understanding who do you have within your network. So you should look at trends, right? You should look at what has the history of giving been. Are there different anomalies? And if there are, pick up the phone and call that person, right? Take it to the next step of that conversation, because research only leads into relationship when you have attentive and curious conversation. So these conversations are where you can learn the donor's heart, what motivates them, what ignites their passions, what draws them into mission. So we lead into authentic conversation. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. But are we ready for what we find? Before I talk about this slide, I want to back up and just say, on the foundation side, sometimes we test this, right? We will give a small organization, or a small gift to an organization that we are researching. We've been exploring them for a little bit. We feel that they are in line with our mission and may be an opportunity for advancement within a particular area. But you must see, to those that are trusted with small things, greater things are to come in store. And so sometimes we will give a small gift to an organization to see, how is this stewarded? Do they do their research? Do they know who we are? Are they able to do all the correct things to steward that gift with something small? Do we get the handwritten thank you note? Do we get an acknowledgement letter with all the correct tax purposes? Does somebody pick up the phone and say, we weren't expecting this $25,000 gift. Where did it come from? Tell me more about you. Who are you? What do you care about, right? I think that if you are looking at who is within your realm as you have it right now, you will find people that are ready for deeper relationship if you actually reach out and ask. So when you do ask, are you ready for what you find? Authentic conversation is where the relationship begins. At the heart of this is asking questions and having a holy curiosity to receive the person in front of you. They will tell you who they are, what they care about, but to be honest, what I found is sometimes organizations are not ready to actually receive what they find. They're too caught up with the goals that they have in mind, right? They go into that briefing meeting, they already have what they want to do. So you can tell them exactly who you are, but they may just continue down that first plan A, right? There's no audibles called, there's no actually reception of the person in front of you. So to be an active listener demands a response. And in this response, it communicates to the donor that they are seen, understood, and then invited by name. So I like this term, holy curiosity. It came to me in spiritual direction many years ago, and I found it so applicable in so many different areas. But holy curiosity, in the definition I've come up with, is entering in with trust in God, surrendering fear to be able to see things as they are. Entering in with trust in God, right? How often are we so pressured by the goals of our organization, or maybe a fundraising goal that you don't know how you're going to reach, and you're thinking about pathways to success? Remembering to first trust that work to the Lord, surrendering the fear, and being ready to see things as they are. So, I'm going to give some examples within my talk today. I ask for your charity and your understanding. I've tried to make them anonymous, so please don't, try and figure out who's who. So this is an example of when we fail to listen. There was an organization, it's a large Catholic national organization that produces very good quality material and programming that we'd been researching for a little bit. We've been supporting them for the last several years with modest donations. But my founder and her husband were very interested in them. And so I got a green light to continue to look at them further. I reached out to their fundraising office, talked to just a regular person. I don't even know what level they were. And I just started asking questions. And I think that's where you get the most honest responses sometimes. But in response to my inquiry, then I got an email from their director of development who knew who we were, wanted to reach out, decided to plan a visit to Tulsa to meet with us. We had lunch, we discussed their organizational vision, some of the projects that they maybe had in the future, and we told them exactly who we are. What does our foundation do? What does our funder care about? What is the background of herself and her husband? And we shared a desire for greater opportunity and something to invest in that was important to us. After the meeting, there was no follow-up. There was no next steps. A few months later, there was an event where our founder and her husband attended. They did make an effort to make a personal connection and sat them next to the president of the organization. But again, no follow-up, no next steps. We get to the end of the grant cycle and I reach back out. I've, again, had done my research. There's a desire for partnership. And I shared a couple of specific projects that I had found within their impact reports and on their website and said, where's the opportunity here? And I was met with a solicitation for those original goals of the organization that they had presented. Not at all tailored, not at all personal to the heart of the donor in front of them, right? So that resulted in no donation that year because we did not have an opportunity for partnership. So donors will tell you exactly who they are and what they want, but are we seeing them? And how do we respond? So I think it's really important to also have vision for the future and the growth of relationship. Moving into transparent communication, the story that you share is important. I think we've heard that multiple times over the course of this conference. Relationships that begin an authentic conversation, face-to-face, are then grown in time with consistency and fidelity. Transparency is key to maintain authentic relationship with donors. When it comes time to prepare for the personal solicitation, how does this transparent communication come into play? So let's go back to Jesus for a moment. Come follow me. Put out into the deep. Jesus was direct, concise, and clear. How can we take that into the solicitations that we prepare? When you're designing and developing your case for support or your request or your perspective, how can it be used within a personal solicitation? You start with mission, right? If it's not mission-driven, then you're moving in the wrong direction. So first, how is this tied to the vision of your organization, the goals that you have, the needs, the outcomes? How are they all serving your greater mission? Have you designed a well-articulated, thoughtful, and concise case for support that is strong enough to stand on its own? Now, I'm going to say something that I hated as a fundraiser. We all want that face-to-face meeting. We all want the opportunity to go through the proposal with every donor. But sometimes I ask people to email me the proposal. Give it to me. I just need to read it, right? We're moving too fast. We work with 300 organizations in a year. I don't have time to meet with every one of them, right? So if the donor asks for it, again, listen and respond. Make sure that you have done the preparation that your case for support can stand on its own. So, can you confidently share your needs with the donor without over-explanation or rationalization, right? I think we all know that you're never going to be able to go into a conversation with a donor and change their mind. You're not going to sell something. You can't convince anyone. All we have is the mission that we serve and the needs that we have. We can present them openly, recognizing the dignity of the donor and their free will to respond generously. That is truly the opportunity that we can present to donors, and they will respond. But I think that they start to become questioning if there is too much over-explanation, right? If it cannot stand on its own, there's probably something to look at there. So be confident in the needs that you have and present them as such. It's freely given and freely received, right? We talk about relationship, and I just want to go back to mission for a second. We talk about relationship, but relationship is reciprocal. And I think there was a good question yesterday that was talking about, fundraisers come and they go. And so when you're talking about a relationship with a donor, the relationship really can't stop at the fundraiser they're working with, whoever's in front of them asking. It needs to be connected back with the mission. If the relationship isn't with the organization on the whole and the work of that mission, then it's not going to last. So how can we as fundraisers lead them to that? And it's the way that we ask. It's the way that we present things. Now, also, within personalizing this, have you taken the time to and care to incorporate the donor into the request? Have you really given it thought and effort of, we had this meaningful conversation, and I know this piece of the case, while the whole case is important and I'm going to present it all, this piece particularly touches a donor's heart. How can I present that in a way that understands and shows the donor that I know that about them, right? That I see that and I want to invite them in particular into that piece. And then lastly, within transparency, we have to understand that things are not perfect and donors don't expect that. So are there concerns, are there challenges that you need to humbly and honestly divulge to the donor? And don't be afraid to do that. So I have a little case study here. So this is when I was working for the Catholic High School, and I was running their campaign. It's the first campaign they had ever done, especially at that level. And they had a large history within the community. It was a very tight-knit community, 60 years of service within the local community. And they really had a wealth of resources when I got in there. They had done a really good job of digitizing all of their yearbooks, going all the way back to like 1950. And so when I was preparing the prospectuses and I had done the feasibility study, I knew the donor base that we were going to ask. I thought, how can I use these resources to really put heart into the proposals that we're preparing? And so I decided to really take this personalized approach to probably a level that was too high in terms of the time resources that we have available to us, right? But for every donor that was above $100,000, I made a personalized proposal for them, incorporating whatever yearbook photos we could from their past. And I always avoided any just traditional, that's their picture in the yearbook, but tried to find moments of life. So we would get athletic pictures or them on the debate team or their grandchildren, right? And the reason for this is to communicate care and to reconnect the donor with the mission that they experienced, right? I think that there are two ways of looking at this level of personalization. The cynical way of looking at it is it manipulation, right? Are you just showing a really great memory and then that makes them feel all warm and fuzzy and now I want to give you money? I would argue that that's truly not the intent here, but the goal was to remind them that they had experienced the fruits of that mission, right? And to bring them back into that place and to then extend it through the needs of how that would be translated to the next generation, to the next people. We were very pleasantly surprised. We tried to do this in a way that it wasn't overt, that they would just kind of be surprised by, oh wait, that's my granddaughter. Wait, I recognize that person. But the donors loved it so much that they would ask for extra copies. They would give it to their friends or their family. They would have it on their coffee tables, which surprised us, but really was, I think, edifying for the love and care that we were trying to put into the outreach. Now, I will admit this doesn't always work and it doesn't always fit, right? For the same campaign, we went through the same painstaking process of personalizing a request to a larger foundation in town. We looked at their mission, we connected how our alumni played into that mission, we looked at their history and how it overlapped, and we built this really beautiful proposal. And it did not result in the gift, right? And that's okay. We control the things that we can control, and then we entrust it to the Lord. But I think the whole reason of that is, again, meeting the one and communicating that love. So, Moving into sincere stewardship. Personalization in solicitation is not the end. It does not end with the gift, but rather it moves into stewardship. This is truly where the relationship grows deeper, right? Stewardship deserves the same effort, the same planning, the same thoughtfulness as the personalized solicitation that you have planned. It's important to remind you all, and I see this truly on a daily basis in the humble heart of the donors that I work with, but it is not for the thank you that you give. It's not why the donors give. It's not why they do what they do, but when you do it well, it carries weight and communicates love to the donors. So ultimately, the practice of good stewardship and gratitude, it's a necessary practice, but not for the donor, but for you, the fundraiser, and for the organization. For the hope of the ungrateful melts like a wintry frost and runs off like useless water. What happens when our organization, not just the fundraisers within it, are not practicing gratitude, both gratitude to the donor, but also ultimately gratitude unto God for what we've been entrusted with. Without the practice of deep gratitude in our organizations, we forget the true purpose of our work and whose our work is for and who it belongs to. And so this goes from the smallest level of a handwritten thank you note to the larger level of when you get a transformational gift, how do you make it personal to communicate that impact back to the donor? I have this quote, which is from one of the organizations that we gave, but I think it so beautifully represents how to thank a donor in a way that has invited them into mission. Your contribution is creating ripples of hope and transformation for thousands and potentially millions of lives. It is impossible to overstate the dignity and freedom that your support has brought to these families. What you have given is more than a light. It is the gift of opportunity, resilience, and hope. I want to thank and call out Paul with the Sisters of Mary. He asked me earlier, we work with them on a few things, and he asked me earlier, how does Kate like to be thanked? What can we do? And one of the things that they do very well is they share prayers. So the sisters work with these beautiful children across the world, and they give bouquets of prayer intentions. They offer how many rosaries were offered for that donor, how many hours of sacrifice were offered, and it has always touched our donor's heart. So I think you look at what is personal both to your organization and to that donor, and how can you appropriately practice that gratitude to them. So sometimes it looks like that. We've had other organizations do, I think when I talk about gratitude across the organization and not just with the fundraiser, it helps to connect your larger organization to mission and understanding the resources that come through it. So yes, you can have then the president or your CEO or the pastor write a handwritten thank you note to that donor. But what about the youth group leader that benefited from the donor? They may never know where that money came from or understand how that donor relates into their mission until you ask them to thank that donor for it, right? It connects your larger organization into the mission and into the donors that participate within it. So I would encourage you to think about, beyond just your shop, beyond just your leadership, how can you spread that gratitude across the larger organization? So another part of stewardship is accountability. By their fruits, you will know them. Desire to be authentic, desire to have authentic feedback and engagement from your donors. Impact reports, project updates, project reports. again, the good, bad, and the ugly is appreciated by donors. That authenticity doesn't only mean the good things. Transparency and accountability are important. Seek continued honest feedback and invite a role for the donor. And then, very importantly, again, have vision for the donor relationship into the future, right? Like I said, sometimes we give small gifts with the intention of larger ones. Sometimes donors give small gifts without the intention of larger ones, but they don't even see that future for themselves yet. How can you receive that gratitude and then have vision for how am I going to bring this donor deeper, right? Steward the small, and more will be granted unto you. Cultivate, plan, have opportunities for a deeper invitation into mission, into role. Again, connecting them with the work of the larger organization. So I have another example to share. This is an organization that we supported, and they're fairly new. And our founder had gone with her grandchildren to experience. It's a museum. And she had kind of a negative experience. Again, we kind of very much like to run under the radar. We don't need the VIP experience. We don't want the VIP experience. We want the true experience. And so she had some negative feedback to give this organization that we supported. So I met with them when they came to ask for a larger annual appeal gift that year. And I was like, hey, we have to have kind of a difficult conversation. Here are some things that we've seen and experienced that could use improvement. So in trusting you and the relationship that we have established, we will give a gift, but we want it to go to fixing these things. So this was in the thank you and the report that they gave back after that gift. You have helped us build a world-class space and activate it as a workshop for hands-on learning. Your feedback reminded us of the importance of excellence and visitor engagement and inspired us to find and implement a new professional development curriculum that infuses best practices in guest facilitation and visitor engagement. We were so impressed with this organization, how they received that difficult negative impact, and then the accountability and the next steps they took in it, that not only did it continue the relationship, but strengthen it, right? In the difficult times, in the feedback that you receive when you ask for it, it can go deeper even if it's not the pretty stuff. I think that that's important, asking for the feedback, right? Because a lot of times people shy away from difficult conversations, right? If you have a donor that had a negative experience and you're not reaching out to them, they may just silently fall away. They're like, why would I give the effort to go and face this difficult, uncomfortable thing? I think asking for the feedback is the first step, and then how, again, you receive and respond to it is important. So just concluding here, the personal follows all the way through the experience with the donor. The personal approach to solicitation is communicating love for the donor by the efforts to acknowledge their dignity and who they are and what they care about first, then to call them by name and invite them into mission. So I came upon this quote, and I pray that this is how you approach your work and receive it. But you're being enriched in every way for all generosity, which through us produces thanksgiving to God. For the administration of this public service is not only supplying the needs of the holy ones, but it is also overflowing in many acts of thanksgiving to God. As always, remember that the missions that we serve, the thanksgiving to our donors, follows through to thanksgiving to God. So I do have a little bit of a fun discussion for us, but before it's a little bit off topic. It still fits in, but I think it can really be fruitful. And I wanted to pause there and see if there were any questions just on the core of the talk. Yes.
Quick question for you. I would love for you to offer some advice to organizations
So the question is, how do you develop an effective case for support while also having transparency with
Transparent conversation, communicating challenges that organizations face.
Sure. Be stewarded well. I think it depends on the challenges that you're facing, right? If it affects the gift, if there's been mismanagement of gifts, or if there have been any problems that affects how a donor's gift is used, I think you have to face those up front and talk about what the problem was, how it was addressed, and where you are now. And then that allows a foundation for what you need to discuss beyond that point, right? So if you have something difficult to face it straight on. And then you can still communicate your greater needs above that and how it connects to mission, and then how you're going to be accountable to that gift. And I think the conversation is just that, a conversation. Again, you're going to need to ask for the donor to be, ask them questions, ask them how they feel about that, get the feedback on it. And especially depending on the level of challenges that you're dealing with, it's probably a multi-step conversation before you're actually getting to the solicitation. So I would probably have a conversation with the donor, if they're an existing donor and you're facing challenges, just to meet with them and talk about, thank you for your gift. Your role is so important within this organization. Hey, we've been dealing with some of these challenges. I wanted to share that with you. What advice do you give? How do you experience this as a donor? These are the things that we're working on, right? Establish that accountability up front. And then if you still have needs, after that conversation, you can show some of the progress that you've made on those issues, and then start the solicitation conversation about where you're going. Again, invite the donors into a role, into the relationship. It's the classic of, if you ask for money, you'll get advice. If you ask for advice, you'll get money. So invite them in at the front end. Yes?
Could you talk about if there's ever a migration from somebody who prefers giving to a restricted fund to is there a progression to the donor's openness as they earn trust with the organization to a more unrestricted fund? Is that a growth that happens, or is it more of I'm a particular kind of donor who likes to give to restricted funds?
Yeah, I think every donor is different, and I think it depends on knowing that donor's heart, right? So sitting down and asking questions to seek to understand, what is it about this restricted fund that you're so passionate about? Why do you support that project here through us, right? Depending on what the restricted fund is, they might be able to fund it other places, but they've chosen you for a reason. So there's some affinity for the overall organization's mission. Why is it done through here? Truly asking, the art of asking questions and just getting deeper into that donor's heart. And then, again, asking, is there interest? We have some other needs. We have some of these other opportunities. I would love to share them with you. Are you open to that? And if they say no, respecting it. But offering them opportunity and then taking them there if they're able. I don't think that any donor that's only giving to one area would be offended by the question to say, hey, can I share these other needs with you? They'll tell you if it's a yes or a no. Now, sometimes for us, there are organizations that we have given to for really specific reasons, usually around a personal relationship. But the larger organization is not something that aligns with mission. And so in those cases, we are very specific about where the donation goes, and only to that restricted fund. But there's usually very delicate things in play, like relationships and mostly a distrust somewhere, right? So I think that it's good to get to the root of that. Is it restricted because of passion, or is there a distrust somewhere that we need to face and understand? Okay. Well, I thank you so much. I think Peter's giving me the sign, so we won't do the fun discussion today. Oh, I can? Okay. All right. So this is a little bit as a request of a friend of mine who is dealing with this within his fundraising work right now. But I think it comes to the core of the personal relationship as well. So the question at hand is, can we be friends with our donors? Is this possible? And then how do healthy boundaries and right-ordered relationships preserve the gift of free will? So I'm going to give just a couple of minutes at the table. I would like you guys to talk about these two questions, and then we'll discuss it at the larger. Okay, time's up. Here we go. So I know it's a big topic. Does anyone want to share something that was discussed at their table? Who is in the yes camp? All right. Who's in the no camp? Oh, okay. Let's hear. Who wants to represent for the yeses? All right. Yes, Father, go.
There's ask is a separate, invited appointment meeting, and I just keep that very clear. The other thing I mentioned to our table though is we also have to be aware of the reverse, where a donor is going to make their gift is going to be undue influence for something they personally desire.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, who wants to represent for the no's? Really fast. Yes.
So we talked about our different connection relationships that we have with people, and particularly when it comes to donors. You know, if I have a very close friend, I sometimes call up and say, I just need to vent about my day, and do that with a donor, I think would be appropriate or harmful to the relationship, to say the least. And it might also harm that idea of free will, based on how people dead to be rather than feeling connected to what we see.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
I was in the yes camp. Just depends on the definition of friends, the kinds of terms, but I think meeting people where they're at in terms of what they're expecting. I think somebody can expect a lot in terms of a friendship. Some people, friendship is times a couple times a year. So I think for myself at least, it's meeting people where they're at, but there becomes a point where it's too much, right? And kind of spacing out those conversations, and at the end of the day, if somebody is looking for more than what is comfortable and manageable, then I just have to let it go. And just continue to, if this works for you, then it works. If it doesn't, then it's just not going to work.
I think there's a lot of different approaches here and a lot to food for thought. I think that second part is healthy for us as fundraisers to meditate on and to discern, right? As we're entering into deeper relationship and having these personal approaches, there are going to be boundaries somewhere in there, right? And we can be friendly, we can be in relationship, but what does true friendship mean? And we categorize them differently. And so I just want to end with a quote from Sirach, chapter 6. A faithful friend is a strong shelter, and whoever has found one has found a treasure. Nothing is comparable to a faithful friend, and no weight of silver or gold is worth more than the goodness of his fidelity. Can we live up to that as fundraisers? Just something to think about. Thank you.